So playing by the rules, Burr sports in the Moray Firth region from 1600 to 1800. On April 14th, 1777, a group of men gathered together in Fraserburgh to form a golf club. They decreed, with regard to the rules of playing of golf, the subscribers shall observe the printed regulations first in the hands of the treasurer for this time, Mr. John Dalrymple. From that point onward, when the 20 men gathered together in Fraserburgh to swing their golf clubs and enjoy an evening of dining entertainment, they had to play by the rules, both on the links and around the dinner table. Fraserburgh's golf club existed in a much wider context, and it begs the question, how is sport interwoven with education and polite and civil society? Indeed, the links along the Moray Firth have been sports fields for over 400 years. Clubs have been swung, bowls have been hurled, and arrows have been fired. And contemporary ideas of civility and polite society have influenced these sports and informed who, when, where these sports were to be played. Specifically, the sports that I examined in my research would have been recognized as leisure activities in their time and involved physical exertion. I'm not looking at things such as shooting, hunting, deer stalking, fishing, and falconry as they form their own coherent group, but in this time they were also seen as very attractive sports. So here we have John Speed's map of Scotland in 1610. Can everybody see? I'm not in the way. So John Speed's map shows the royal family, so King James VI, and Queen Anne, Prince Henry, and Prince Charles. So this is the area that I look at, the Moray Firth. So this coastal region is a relatively fertile and low-lying landscape, with the highland hinterlands at its back and the sea to its front. Within this rural landscape, the boroughs were centers of education, commerce, governance, both civil and ecclesiastical, and sport during the early modern period. Despite the great overland distance between many of these boroughs, they were more closely connected than you might think. The distance between these boroughs by the sea, however, was much shorter, and sea travel, as you can see, the ship on the map, features largely in connecting this region together. It brought together people, goods, ideas, and education. Sport throughout these boroughs in the Moray Firth were definitely connected to wider Scottish, British, and European trends, but they retained many of their own characteristics. This paper will discuss golf as one of the most popular sports in this region that existed alongside many other sports, including archery, bowls, horse racing, and shinty. Golf factored largely in the sporting landscape of the Moray Firth. However, it has been rarely discussed at any length in the histories of the game because of the overwhelming tendency of its authors to focus on the early histories of the game at the metropolis of golf in St. Andrews, and at the links of Edinburgh, Leith, and Montrose. However, much information can be gleaned about the sport in the north and provides much more evidence about the prevalence of the game in the country. And therefore, an examination of the sport from Aberdeen would reorient the history of golf in Scotland, balancing its southern and 19th century focus with an earlier focus looking northwards. Here we have Timothy Pont's map obtained in Dornoch circa 1600. Dornoch's first records of golf offer evidence about the importance of physical education for the school pupils of the borough. John, the 14th Earl of Sutherland, was sent to Dornoch in 1616 by his tutor and uncle, Sir Robert Gordon of Gordonston, to begin his education. Sir Robert Gordon was born at Dunrobin Castle in 1580. He was the fourth son to the 12th Earl of Sutherland. Initially, he was educated in Dornoch before he left for St. Andrews, Edinburgh, then continued his education on the continent. He was a successful courtier at the court of King James VI and I, and was subsequently admitted to Gentleman of the Bedchamber and was knighted. Gordon, as well as being the tutor to his nephew, family historian, he was also a sports enthusiast. In 1617, he won the silver arrow competition at Edinburgh in the presence of King James and a bunch of the court that was able to make it up to Scotland. It is possible that he learned the silver arrow archery skills out on the Dornoch links and, as a schoolboy, and continued his involvement with sport, both golf and archery, at St. Andrews in Edinburgh. This is one of the sources that I've looked at in great depth. After his brother's death, Sir Robert became the guardian and tutor to his nephew. And here you can see an image from his tutor account book, which was a written ledger which recorded all the expenses of the young Earl during his minority. As with many formal documents from the 17th century, it is written in secretary script, which is a form of formal handwriting preferred by clerks. Although it may look like a bunch of scribbles, trust me, it's not. It just takes a while for your eyes to get to be able to decipher it. But sometimes progress can be quite slow on a letter-by-letter basis transcribing these documents. So when you look closely, you can find gems like this. You guys, can you spot the golf? I'll give you a hint. Right?
Oh, yeah. Look, yeah.
So, we see two accounts here. Item £10 given this year, 1619, for books, paper, and ink. It's the first one. And the second record is item £10 given this year for bows, arrows, golf clubs, and balls, with all other necessaries for his lordship's exercise. So these records continue throughout this Tudor account book from 1617 to 1619, and they're normally paired, the sporting references are normally paired with charges for books, paper, and ink. So this charge was quite sizable when you consider a year worth of education in Dornoch was £67, 13 shillings, and 4 pence. So having £10 for your sporting equipment, it's quite a sizable sum. So it is with these first records that we see the connection between sport and education in Dornoch, as the charges, as I said, are normally along with the staples for school. Dornoch was the centre of Sir Robert's plan for civilizing Sutherland. Dornoch already had a commendable school fit for educating the earls and the younger sons of Sutherland, such as himself. However, Sir Robert instructed John that the facilities in Dornoch alone were not enough to transform the lands, and that he should plant English language schools throughout Sutherland. And John was also told, to erect a library in Dornoch to amend the ignorance of the people because of the lack of books. I've not found records of this initial library, but I have found the existence of a library in Dornoch in 1707 with the presbytery records, and it details the catalogue of its holdings. But it's clear that John and Sir Robert were purchasing large numbers of books. Sir Robert's personal library, which remained intact until 1815, numbered well over 2,000 books, and wasn't sold until the 19th century. In addition to Sir Robert's promotion of education, he maintained that sport was also important for everyone, and instructed his nephew to cherish your countrymen and train them up in all kind of honest exercise, such as hunting, riding, archery, shooting with the gun, golfing, jumping, running, swimming, and such like. According to Sir Robert, there was no better place for these sports than Dornoch. Moreover, the borough's status as a centre for civilized sports such as archery, golf, and horseback riding were praised, said to rival that of St. Andrews and Montrose. Gordon wrote, and I'm sure you all know this quote, "About this town there are the fairest and largest links of any part of Scotland, fit for archery, golfing, riding, and all other exercise, and they do surpass the fields of Montrose and St. Andrews." The promotion of sport for his countrymen was interwoven within Gordon's civilizing plan. He hoped that by promoting sport and amending his countrymen's ignorance, he could facilitate the spread of civility throughout the lands, integrating his nephew's holdings into that of a lowland courtly culture that was promoted by King James VI. Enthusiasm for sport was not just something for Sir Robert and John. John's sons, George, Lord Strathnaver, the future Earl, and Robert, his younger brother, went to London between 1654 and 1656 to experience the capital. Their travel expenses included charges for clothing, room and board, books, news pamphlets, ink, drink money, as well as fencing lessons and books on French grammar and arithmetic. As well, these expenses included a record for the purchase of golf clubs and balls, in addition to recounting all their losses on the bowling greens. Although they were playing in the environs in London, it is logical to assume that they learned how to play from their father and the Dornoch links. Unfortunately, as these references are from expense accounts, it's hard to track how many times they played or their proficiency at the game. It was just when they needed new golf balls, new clubs, that we find records of this. Golf, however, for these young noblemen was one of their favourite pastimes when they were in London, while experiencing the capital and continuing their education. And it was important. Golf was important for them, for their education, just as it was for their father when he was being educated in Dornoch. On the other side of the Murray Firth, in Aberdeen, is another one of the earliest sites of golf in the north, and it features highly in the borough records. David Hamilton has unearthed a possible reference in the records from 1538, where the plaintiff of a lawsuit was a golfer. In the 1560s, the kirk was especially concerned with the sport being played within the kirkyard because it could damage the kirk and break windows. As well, it declared it one of the most profane pastimes of the period. Similarly to Dornoch, Aberdeen's links were a very popular site for sports and were frequently visited by the school pupils, who enjoyed them in great jollity along with the general public. David Wedderburn was the master of the Aberdeen Grammar School in the first half of the 17th century. He taught his pupils the basics of Latin and helped them build a large vocabulary. Wedderburn was an active Latinist, and he wrote an introduction to the Latin grammar in the 1630s, which was supported by the Convention of the Royal Boroughs as the new national textbook for Latin grammar. In addition, Wedderburn also created his vocabula. The vocabula, as seen here, this is a copy of it from 1712, I believe. The vocabulary, and it was first created in, as you can see, the first edition there. So it had a very long lifespan, and it was very popular. So this vocabula was a Latin learning aid used by the students for discussing their everyday activities. And sport was one of the main things that was discussed within this book. And Wedderburn devoted sections to archery, bowls, football, and golf. Baculus, meaning golf, was one of the most popular pastimes for the students. And Wedderburn's texts included phrases for how to play the game, information on the types of clubs used, as well as their different parts, and as well as how to congratulate your fellow golfer on a well-placed shot. The students of King's and Marshall College also enjoyed sport on the links. Indeed, they had specific athletic periods built into their curriculums in both universities, so the Aberdeen pupils, as well as university students, were shepherded out onto the links 3 times a week, 2 hours in the afternoon, for their exercise. They were kept under close supervision to avoid any mischief or people playing games against one another that shouldn't be playing games against one another. They particularly didn't like it when the junior university students were trying to play games against the oldest students. That was just one of the things that they didn't like having happen. The universities of Aberdeen were part of a much larger Scottish trend that allowed and even provision for scholars to partake in lawful exercise. For example, at the University of Glasgow, in the 16th and 17th of September 1642, it was recorded that scholars should be exercised in lawful games, such as golf, archery, and such like, and should abstain from games that are unlawful, such as carding and dicing, and other games that have been discharged by these laws. Many of the notable sons of the Moray Firth went to Aberdeen to continue their education, from even people who want to continue in education to become minister or a schoolmaster, to many of the lairds of this area, like Sir Thomas Urquhart of Cromarty and Simon Fraser, Master of Lovat. Urquhart preferred his books, while Fraser seems to be more of a sportsman. It was said that Fraser had no equal at golf, bowls, and archery, and he won the Silver Arrow competition at King's College in 1636. So here's a map of Aberdeen, James Gordon, parson of Rothiemay. This map went along with a description of both towns of Aberdeen. And Gordon praised the links as popular sites of recreation. On the east side of the city and of Footy there lies many fair fields, fruitful of corn, wheat, bear, oats, peas, and pot herbs and roots. These are marched by the fields near the seaside called the links. The most remarkable among these lies the fair plain called the Queen's Links. The reason for the name is unknown. The links extend themselves betwixt the two rivers of the Don and the Dee. Here the inhabitants recreate themselves in several kinds of exercise, such as football, golf, bowling, and archery. Similarly, Sir Samuel Forbes of Forvin, in his description of Aberdeenshire circa 1715, recounted in his youthful days in Aberdeen. It might be reckoned a piece of ingratitude in one to have had his harmless youthful pastimes here, yet to forget or not to mention the adjoining carpet walk. It is a smooth, dry field, stretching the length betwixt the mouth of the two rivers, the Dee and the Don, and sheltered on the seaside, that was a bit of a tongue twister, by the mighty dunes that are covered with a strong greenish plant called bent, and beautified on the city side by a well-cultivated ground surrounded with a plantation of willows. The one end of the field affords healthful summer recreation to the short bowls, and the other end the like healthful winter recreation, the golf ball. So here we have, this is at the bottom of Gordon's map. You can see some people just enjoying themselves out on the links. Both accounts reveal that the links were enjoyed by many Aberdonians. Pedestrians took to the links, strolling through the fields with great enjoyment. General Patrick Gordon of Auchiluchries, a son of Aberdeenshire who rose through the ranks as a foreign mercenary to become a general in the Russian army, praised the links while he was home visiting his family. In July 1686 he penned, "I went thereafter to the links, and passed time in inexpressible contentment." Sportsmen took to the links with fervour in Aberdeen to practice their favourite sports. Golf was a year-round sport in Aberdeen, as it was in Elgin, and it was especially enjoyed when the links were short and the ground was hard and cold. Bowls, conversely, was a summer sport, and archery was keenly practiced by the pupils of both the grammar school and the colleges. The Queen's Links in Aberdeen then, when weather permitted obviously, would have been a lively place, bustling with people walking, bowling, golfing, and practicing their archery. The depictions of Aberdeen offer evidence of the duality of the links landscape, as a place for sport and recreation, as well as commercial enterprise. Gordon, in regards to the links, wrote that all year round the links were a pasture for fattening of mutton, and bringing forth early lambs. So careful hath nature been that the inhabitants of this city should have a convenient intermixture of profit and pleasure. This would have been representative of the links all along the Moray Firth coast, as there was frequently people grazing their livestock, drying fishing nets, getting turf for house construction, as well as playing golf and practicing a lot of other sports. However, this intermixture did not always coexist harmoniously. Sir Thomas Matheson's The Golf mockingly described golf around Edinburgh. However, there's much truth in his verses. His last canto demonstrates the hazards of the duality of the links. The shepherd snatched a stout crook, and fierce vengeance flung, as one of his harmless sheep by fate did decree fall. feels the dire fury of the rapid ball. Full on her front the raging bullet flew, and sudden anguish seized the silent yew. Staggering she falls upon verdant plain, convulsing pains detract her wounded brain. Sadly, sheep were not the only unintended targets of the dire fury of the rapid ball, as a young girl was mortally struck by a ball while she was out on the links in Port Soy in 1785. So, possibly by one of those, an old feathery, or possibly by more of a makeshift wooden ball that was also being used.